"Sir, residents come in through the side gate. The service entrance is out of order." The order, blunt and to the point, came from a woman in a white blazer. Each heel tapped against the slate floor, a steady beat of authority. She stayed by the control panel, one hand planted firmly on the console, the other on her hip. Her blonde hair was cut in a precise bob, dark sunglasses filtering the gentle morning light. The radio clipped to her belt looked almost like a badge. "Before we go on, hit subscribe and ring the bell. YouTube needs to know this is good stuff so it can show it to more people." Her name was Olivia Brooks, head of security for the Beverly Hills Enclave. To her eyes, the man standing in front of the yellow line stuck out. He wasn't in the system, wasn't wearing a suit, didn't have a badge. He was just there, black, tall, 52, still catching his breath after an 8-mile run. A Nike tee clung to his chest, sweatpants and sneakers snug around his calves. No watch, no flashy logos, just presence. Olivia scanned him head to toe. Her lips tightened, half a smile, half a sneer. "Use the guest gate down there." Neither of them moved. The corridor held its breath. Then he took a step, just enough to trigger the sensor. The sign on the gate flickered red. Access denied. Olivia arched an eyebrow. Now the game was on. The gate 6 panel blinked as the stranger's finger hovered over the reader. "Sir, this device requires a credential. Step back," the agent said, hand hovering over her holster. "I live here," he replied, calm and steady. The silence that followed stretched beyond reason. Olivia raised her brow again. "Sure, and I'm Beyoncé," she snapped, keying her radio. "Unit 3, badgeless individual attempting the 6 sensor. Defiant tone, possible intrusion." The word intruder hung in the air like smoke in a closed room. Michael didn't flinch. His eyes drifted to the stone pathway he'd laid himself, the family crest half hidden by bougainvillea, the wrought iron gate he'd commissioned. Every detail backed his story, except his right to be there. To her, he was just some guy in sweats, out of protocol. Outside, a flower delivery van slowed to a stop. The driver noticed the standoff, raised an eyebrow, and instinctively raised his phone. Maybe to film, maybe to call it in, maybe just out of habit. Michael felt that invisible lens on him but didn't budge. He hovered inches from the reader, as if holding the gate's breath. The whole garden seemed to wait for the next sound. Olivia stepped forward, thumb near the emergency button. 30 seconds to leave or I call the cops. Trespassing doesn't end well." Michael cocked an eyebrow, almost smiling. "You intimidate everyone or just people who don't pull up in a Bentley?" Olivia's voice stayed ice cold. "This is private security. Stop trespassing." "Trespassing's what you're doing," he replied, calm. Across the street, the florist's camera rolled. The gate stayed red, but Justice's clock had started ticking. Olivia Brooks didn't flinch. She clicked her heels closer, dress swaying, voice sharp enough for the petunias. "Wrong door, sir. Private property, sir." The beep sounded again. No green. Michael held his ground, eyes locked on hers, as if reading something beyond her gaze. "I told you, I live here." "Oh, of course, and I'm a princess," she shot back, pressing her radio. "Unit 4 copy. Situation 1016. Individual claiming residency, possible fraud, approaching on foot without credential." The code was born in that moment and sounded official. 2 guards appeared, one fastening his vest, the other sipping coffee. They stopped when they saw Michael, frowned, sizing him up like a puzzle they needed to solve before the clock ran out. The tension throbbed with the gate's relentless beep. Olivia kept her eyes on the lit-up gate as the trio closed in. "Who is he?" the younger guard asked. "Someone who walks around like he owns the place," Olivia replied without looking back. The tactical vest guard gave Michael's simple tea a once-over. "Maintenance crew?" Michael raised his hand to speak, but Olivia cut him off. "He says he's a resident. I'm verifying." "You could have just asked his name," the other guard insisted. One frosty glance from Olivia shut him up. Michael took a deep breath, filling the corridor with a slow exhale. "I don't owe proof of who I am to someone who has no authority to doubt me," he said firmly. Olivia stepped forward, tone low. "Sir, I don't know what show you're putting on, but this isn't TikTok." Michael's mouth curved, an almost smirk. "It's not about likes, it's about legacy." The word landed heavy. Olivia wavered. At that moment, the florist waiting for the gate to open spoke up. "Hey, I deliver flowers here every week. That's Michael Carter, isn't it?" Before we go any further, hit subscribe and ring the bell. YouTube needs to know this is good stuff so it can show it to more people. Olivia spun around, annoyed. Please step back, this is private. But it was too late. The name echoed through the foyer. Michael Carter. Tech conferences cheer him. Forbes has his face on the cover. Investors hang on his every word. Here, in sweats and sneakers, only the name remained. Enough to bend protocols and prove who really ran this gate. Michael raised a finger for silence, but Olivia's smile stayed mocking. Michael Carter, is it? Where's the shiny badge, the holographic seal, the chauffeur? He held her gaze a moment, then unhurriedly reached into his pocket, pulled out a worn phone, cracked glass at one corner, and dialed, Dana, initiate Protocol 7. Open the gate, confirm the property deed, and pull up Lot B's record. The voice on the other end was steady, as if waiting for his call. Confirmed, sir. Executing now. The guards exchanged looks. One let his coffee dangle halfway to his lips. Olivia let out a short laugh. Seriously? You trust a phone call for everything? She turned back to the panel, ready to override. Then came the sharp click of the magnetic lock, followed by a booming announcement down the corridor. Access granted. Michael Carter, principal resident. Authority verified. The florist lowered his phone, mouth hanging open. Olivia blinked, surprise flickering in eyes that had been so sure. Michael took a step forward, calm, as if walking into his own home. She froze, fingers hovering over the keys, afraid one tap would shatter her world. His name still echoed, hammering the steel walls. She recovered quickly, maybe too quickly. Her voice came out low, almost a growl. The system may have cleared you, but you only get in by going over me. The younger guard cleared his throat. Ma'am, if this is his gate. Olivia cut in, her voice shaking. I've already said no. The system might have been hacked. We need to check inside. Michael stayed silent. The florist, camera up and streaming, taunted. You gonna keep insisting? The gate literally just spoke his name. Want a DNA test? Olivia spun around sharply. Back off. Restricted area. Instead of stepping back, the florist narrated for his viewers. Watch this. The mansion's owner is stuck outside. The gate recognizes him. Security doesn't. Welcome to 2025. A black Tesla rolled up to the gatehouse. The driver, a Latina in her 40s, lowered her window. What's the problem? They blocked the owner, answered the florist. She stared at Michael, eyes wide. Oh my God. It's Michael Carter from Carter Tech. His name echoed through the courtyard. Olivia tried to stay in control. You can't just walk in because you say you live here. Michael replied calmly. I didn't say it, your system did. If you want to ignore protocol, go right ahead and keep blocking. Silence. The younger guard scratched his neck. Ma'am, we still follow procedure, right? Let him in, Olivia whispered. And if anything goes wrong, it's on you. Michael stepped back, but Olivia stepped forward without flinching. Think having your name on a server makes you untouchable? Systems crash every day, especially for people like you. Michael answered, calm and firm. People like me built this block. The corridor held its breath. The Tesla's engine dead quiet, the florist frozen, the barista paused mid-sip. The standoff felt momentous. Olivia blinked and took a half step back, but pride pushed her on. She raised her radio. Unit 7, Gate 6, escalation, possible fraud, LAPD on alert. Michael didn't budge, hands relaxed, shoulders squared, gaze like granite. You called the police? We don't tolerate threats in this neighborhood, Olivia said. The florist exploded. What threat? He didn't even move. He's the victim. Back the Tesla driver. Olivia stood her ground. An intruder with excuses, leave or be arrested. Michael held up his phone, impassive. Dana, Phase 2, full audit, real-time logs, channel open. Understood, Mr. Carter, cameras live, logs open. Olivia Brooks's escalation logged. LED panels flared to life, displaying timestamps and stamps. Each line made it clear who was protecting the place and who was threatening it. The murmur swelled. Phones lit up like blades of light. Olivia felt the weight of those images but kept her chin up, hoping no one would see what came next. Michael said nothing more. The neighborhood watched, waiting. Before we continue, hit subscribe and ring the bell. YouTube needs to know this is important so it can share it with more people. Just hearing his name drained color from Olivia's face. He wasn't just some hoodie-clad guy at the gate. He was a potential lawsuit, An audit, a report waiting to happen. He identified himself, the florist protested, phone raised. On the sidewalk, a black runner with snug headphones stepped in. I live 3 blocks away. I see this guy run here every morning 3 years straight. That's none of your business, Olivia snapped. Now it is. Phones multiplied in curious hands, and Michael, not a centimeter of him moved. He seemed glued to the concrete that in a way was his. The gate blinked green, opening the way. He still didn't cross. This story needed witnesses. Olivia backed up, trying to steady her trembling fingers. The guards behind her stayed silent, already understanding. Finally, one checked a tablet. His voice was almost a whisper. His name's been on the deed since 2017. 3 adjacent lots, including this gate and the house next door. Olivia clenched her jaw. The florist lowered his phone only to raise it again. So you called the cops on the owner of the block? Muttered a guard. No answer was needed. This wasn't a mistake or mix-up. It was a ritual Michael knew well. He took a step forward, not at the gate, but close enough for Olivia to look him in the eye. How many times have I had to prove I belong here? He said, voice calm and cutting. In the office I designed, in the room named after me, in this house. Olivia was speechless. You thought the gate would crown you. It only revealed your fear. Hearts raced, phones raised. In seconds, the live stream hit 3,000 viewers. Olivia froze on screen at the exact moment she showed her bias, and the algorithm showed no mercy. Unit 7, ETA? She pleaded into the radio. Silence. Then Dana's voice came through Michael's speaker. Mr. Carter, LAPD alerted. Call intercepted. Legal is watching. Olivia Brooks record, 7 complaints, no escalations. Pattern logged. The declaration thundered. One guard trembled, another stepped back. Olivia's voice cracked. You can't override my authority. Michael tilted his head. You never had authority, just bolts and metal, now out of your reach. From the sidewalk, a woman in workout gear shouted, You don't erase a man just because he's not in a suit today. A murmur swept through the small crowd. Michael gazed at the mansion, 3 stories of glass and stone, silent, the home he'd always dreamed of. Then he faced Olivia. I'm going to walk through this gate, he said quietly, firmly. Not because I have to, but because I always could. And he did. The air shifted. It wasn't about permission anymore, but who would dare to stop him? Olivia stood frozen, radio useless in her hand. Michael paused center courtyard. Sweat glistened on his austere face, but there was no triumph. His simple stance seemed to hush the stones themselves. Did you see that? The florist whispered, phone raised. He walked up like he brought gravity with him. In the gatehouse, an officer held up the tablet. Olivia, you need to look at this. She kept her eyes on the control screen. Summarize, Michael demanded, voice flat. Michael Carter, founder of Hull Tech Systems, advisor to Clarion Financial, principal shareholder of Westridge Estates, the management company for this community. The air seemed to constrict. Olivia turned pale, trying to reclaim control. I didn't know. You didn't even bother to ask, he replied, taking a step that sounded like a verdict. You preferred to judge the face of the one who pays you. Before we go on, click subscribe and hit the bell. That way YouTube knows this content is relevant and recommends it to more people. The system fell apart with a snap. The intern yanked off his headset. The second guard stepped back, shaking his head. The florist flipped the camera on himself and narrated to TikTok. See that? A black CEO blocked from entering his own home because they thought he was an intruder. Michael stood firm. The embarrassment was all hers. Olivia searched for words, maybe apologies, maybe excuses. But the final voice came booming from the loudspeaker. Mr. Carter, reset complete. Gate 6 records are archived. Compliance will evaluate Olivia Brooks's conduct. Legal recommends suspension until the investigation is concluded. Olivia blinked twice in disbelief. Are you serious? Michael ignored the question. He turned to the guards. There are 2 choices. Uphold the mistake or do what's right. The officers exchanged glances. When he strode across the lawn, they followed, leaving Olivia alone. The florist, hidden behind an arrangement, murmured, That was a firing without a word. On paper, she was still the manager, but the gate obeyed a different code and the radio turned into dead plastic. The younger soldier cleared his throat. Please step away from the panel. What was that? The block is his now. Legal's been called. "We're not signing this." Olivia's poise wilted. Outside, onlookers spilled out, phones raised, a cyclist was live streaming. A woman with a yoga mat whispered, "He built those buildings on Lubri, right?" "Michael Carter." "That's him, Haltech billionaire," added a guy in a baseball cap. Olivia turned back to Michael, standing by the fountain with his back to the gate, as calm as the house behind him. She tried to sound conciliatory. "Mr. Carter, I didn't mean to." "You did everything except listen." He didn't turn. "You labeled me a threat before you asked a single question. Protocols, intrusions, fake badges." Michael finally turned. His voice remained firm. "Did I break in, deny something, or did I just not fit the image you created?" The silence stuck to the skin. Over the speaker, Dana's voice cut through. "Mr. Carter, internal security requests authorization to formalize the termination. Here's the rewritten text, with 1,420 characters." Olivia took a deep breath before the silence cracked. On the other side of the gate, Michael held her gaze and, without haste, sealed whatever fate remained. "From now on, Olivia Brooks's credentials are revoked." Pause. "Cut access to gates, buildings, communications, and files." The panel beside her creaked and went dark, and the radio let out a final hiss. The badge flashed red, revealing the new status. "Wait." Michael didn't back down. He just turned like a judge who had already read the verdict. "It wasn't you who left me. I left you when you swapped your suit for a hoodie." Dana's voice flooded the speakers. "Mr. Carter, the reset sequence is complete. All accesses tied to ID Brooks will be removed." Olivia stared at the speaker, helpless. The command came tersely. "Proceed." Locks clicked and monitors went into alert. Access revoked. An officer stepped back, muttering a curse. The florist behind the planters whispered that this went beyond security. It was a total reboot. Michael lifted his silver-blue Haltech phone. "Dana, connect me to the Westridge room, include Clarion's legal team, and schedule the HOA ad." They've been on since Olivia's call. Olivia felt the abyss. "Mr. Carter, there's been a mistake. You called the police on the owner, started a lockdown with no protocol, and ignored the system confirmations. Now that the bill has arrived, you're asking for mercy." Olivia took a step back. "Let me explain." Michael lifted his eyes just enough. The phone buzzed with Dana's voice. "The Westridge board has voted. Olivia Brooks's management powers are revoked. Legal is already drafting the action for wrongful detention and conduct motivated by bias." The word conduct echoed through the courtyard. Olivia stared at the darkened panel, then the silenced radio, and finally at Michael. Her voice faltered. "I didn't even know who you were." "That was the problem," Michael replied without hesitation. He turned toward the house. "Restart the system," he murmured almost to himself before addressing everyone. They weren't filming disorder, they were recording justice. In the center of the lens, a man in an immaculate hoodie reclaimed, inch by inch, the power they thought he'd lost. On the street, everything stopped. Cyclists put down their bikes, dog owners froze, drivers rolled down their windows not to honk, but to listen. The shoving match at the mansion gate had turned into a live broadcast about dignity. The signal remained strong. On the other end, someone was still whispering. The man, calm the whole time, reshaped the scene without raising his voice. The audience topped 28,000 people. Comments popped up. "This is how real power walks. Never judge a CEO by his hoodie." Olivia was still holding the gate, but the ground belonged to him. The woman with the yoga mat stepped forward as if onto an invisible stage, raising her phone to chin level. "Mr. Carter," she asked softly, "how do you stay calm when they want to erase your name?" Michael turned, polite, attentive. After a breath, he offered a principle honed by practice. "When they underestimate me, I learn who's doing it. And by staying calm, I remember that storms only test the foundations." The answer ran down the sidewalk like a spark. Someone whispered, "Put that in my yearbook." The laughter that sprang up wasn't scorn. It sounded like collective relief. At the corner, a teenager in an apron waved. "Hey, Mr. Carter. My brother interned at Haltech. He said you used to visit even the cleaning rooms." Michael lifted his chin, a restrained smile. "Tell him I appreciate it. That's where the building gains its heart." New cell phones rose, now in tribute. A mother pressed her phone to the car window. My daughter researches black innovators. She watches you live and has already written down your name. Michael replied softly, firmly. Ask her to write her own as well. A wow ran across the asphalt. At some point, Olivia Brooks became a spectator to a story that no longer dealt with failures. It became about the silent resistance of someone who doesn't bend, even under the sun rising over Beverly Hills, reflecting off glass, asphalt, and skin, marking that instant as the rough draft of something greater. A dense silence settled over the courtyard, the pause before the inevitable. Michael Carter stood at the foot of the marble steps. Behind him, the glass facade caught the end of the afternoon. His breathing was already calm, the sweat had dried, leaving only the exact weight of his body and what he represented. In front of the gate, a diverse array of faces formed an audience without asking for autographs. They wanted to understand what they'd just witnessed, a systemic lapse in the response of someone who refuses labels. Amid the leaves, a reporter mustered her courage. Mr. Carter, what would you say to people who've gone through what you went through today? Michael stared into the lens. No scripts, no podium. Just sneakers on the ground and steady resolve. They didn't try to hold me back because they knew who I am, but because they didn't. That's why I stirred all of this up. His words landed precisely. Shoulders slumped as if each syllable made the moment heavier. He went on. I didn't yell or strike, I just stopped giving in, and the system had to shift. Then came the cutting remark. No one gives up the power of their own home. Phones shot up, not hungry for likes, but to capture the moment. Florists whispered, "Mark this." In the Tesla parked at the curb, a mother leaned over to her daughter. Remember that line. Without applause, Michael climbed the steps. Each footfall sounded like the period at the end of a lifetime's paragraph. Without a door slam, he vanished beyond the glass, no mere owner, but author of his own belonging. To everyone there, it was clear. Presence isn't handed to you. You have to assert it. The door closed behind him with the firmness of someone closing a chapter. Inside, the house began to breathe again. No echo, no beep, just the silence after the storm. Michael Carter stood in the foyer, feeling the fresh air on his skin like clean clothes pulled from the wash after a fire. He didn't go upstairs or fetch a glass of water. He let the moment settle into his bones. Before we continue, go ahead and hit subscribe and ring the bell. This way, YouTube knows this content matters and will share it with more people. He looked up at the black and white portrait above the stairs. His mother, dressed in her Sunday best, one hand on her hip, the other resting on a Bible, chin lifted more in defiance than in pose. She never passed through those doors, but there she guarded every threshold. The memory came back clear. 7th grade, South Side Chicago. His cousin's oversized blazer, the science fair downtown. In the lobby, a security guard pointed and said, "You don't belong here." Michael swallowed his comeback, walked away, and the chill he felt wasn't from the wind. That line followed him to college, to meetings where they assumed he was an assistant, to elevators where purses tightened. Today it echoed again at the gate leading to his own home. This time he didn't flinch. He murmured, "They came at just the right time." With no apologies, he crossed the Carter way that was wholly his. He went to the window and drew back the curtain. On the sidewalk, the crowd was dispersing, but they wouldn't be the same. The florist tucked away his camera after one last wave. A little girl placed her hand on the gate, sizing up the house as if reading her future. Michael followed her gaze and whispered, "I didn't raise this to be seen. I raised it to be undeniable." He stepped into the corridor, leaving the murmur of the street behind. Outside, the city rushed on. Inside, time followed its own rules. On the walls, the story unfolded frame by frame. The first rack in a rented garage, the tape of Haltech's opening, his daughter's graduation smile, his son's patent. Each image reminded him that a legacy is built piece by piece. But today wasn't about trophies. It was about defending what no one could take away. On a small table rested a leather notebook, its edges worn. He opened it to find handwriting from 13 years ago. Legacy is not what remains when we depart. It's what doesn't fade as long as we exist. He traced the line with his finger as if checking a pulse, and without raising his voice, spoke to everyone watching. If they've ever told you to shut up or wait, know this. Raising the bar doesn't require volume. He snapped the notebook shut. Presence is strength. To walk in your purpose, there are no gates or passwords. He inhaled deeply and looked into the camera with no filters. When you encounter guardians at the gate, remember, the land is yours. He advanced into the courtyard. Sunlight poured through the glass, stretching shadows and turning that last line into a suspended warning. They didn't underestimate a man. They failed to recognize a movement. Thanks for sticking around. If any of these words moved you, hold tight. The journey continues, and we've still got a long way to go. See you next time.